We're at lesson 5 in our book. I hope everybody knew that and was prepared that for the day. I am planning on teaching lessons at one time all next week, Lord willing. Why don't we have a piano? Teddy says that we can't afford it. Bill says we ain't got anybody that can pick it up. Pardon? Janita can't play. Well, looks like we're in a heap of trouble. Seriously, why don't we have instrumental music in our worship? The Lord doesn't tell us to use it, Linda? Melinda says we as a church are patterning our service after the New Testament, and in the New Testament there is no indication that anybody worshiping God used an instrument of any sort in the New Testament now. Now in the Old Testament, yes, I'll agree that there were musical instruments, but in the New Testament there's no indication that we have use of anything. That fabulous source of knowledge that we all use that is never wrong, called Google. If you Google instrumental music in the New Testament, is there any verse that even hints to instrumental music? The answer is no. I tried 3 or 4 times, and I couldn't find it because it's not there. So why do we? The obvious answer is why we don't have instruments is because there's no pretext for our text to show us that the Bible condones it or that the Lord condones it. But it's not that simple. To some. That is to me, and is to you. But it's not that simple to someone who's visiting, to someone who may be young. I've used the illustration many times. I've told you, my son, when he went off to college, came home and asked him to teach the class, and he agreed. And I remember, because he caught Daddy cold when he said it. He told the kids, he said, I want to tell you something. He said, what did I learn in college? He said, don't have your parents' religion, have your religion. You think that don't put a daddy down where he crawls under the pew? He said, I respect him and I appreciate what he's told me, but the religion that I have is not my daddy's religion. And I got home and thanked him 100 times. We believe the same thing, but he got it through study and not from me. I didn't force it on him. He didn't let me force it on him. We sometimes take it for granted because we don't believe it. Our kids don't believe it. If you think that's true, those things that got on their ears when they're walking around, what are they listening to? Music. And the music generally is with an instrument. But when they come to church, they change gears. And we're going to study and hopefully have an answer about why we do what we do and where it will lead us. What do we believe? 1 Corinthians 14:15. Let's take a minute and look at these up and read them all. Dick, would you read 1 Corinthians 14:15? Jack, Ephesians 5:19. Bobo, Colossians 3:16. BT, Hebrews 2:12. Byers, Hebrews 13:15. Teddy, James 5:13. What does the Bible in the Old Testament say about singing? It says, make a joyful noise unto the Lord. And I have kidded over the years many times that if making a joyful noise is acceptable to God, then my singing is acceptable to God. Because it is not carry a tune. It is, I do the best I can, but to say it's pretty, it's not. But God doesn't want to be listened to pretty music. He wants it to come from our heart. That what we say and what we do has a reason. You know, I want you to today to take a moment when Byers, are you leading and singing today? Are you leading singing today? When Gary leads singing today, look around you. I bet you'd be surprised at the number of people that aren't singing. I think, now because I said that, you know, everybody's going to be singing. But there are people in the classes that are not in here. I wish you would just look around at the people that are not singing. And I want to go up and say, Patricia, why aren't you singing, if you were? Why aren't you singing? Because their standard answer, well, I was humming in my heart, or I was singing in my heart. It doesn't say anything about internal. It's talking about singing. They're making melody with our heart, making rhythm with our heart, making spirit with our heart. We need to sing out loud. And just think about how pretty our singing would be if everybody sang versus 80%. You know, one of the things that when we have the teens here, that everybody says, wow, wasn't that singing pretty? Wasn't that singing great? You know why? It's because the kids, they all sing. They all open their mouth and something comes out. Jim Allen's wife was sitting in front of me one time and church was over. She stood up, turned around, and she said, Ronny, I've been a preacher's wife for 40-something years. She says, you're the only person I know that tries to sing all 7 parts at the same time. I looked at Sergeant and I said, did I just get cut? She said, yeah, you did. But then she said, but you were singing out loud. And that's what God wants. He wants us to sing something, to make a joyful noise to him. Let's read these verses sequentially, and then we'll talk about them. Dick will be reading 1 Corinthians 14:15.
What is it then? I will pray with the Spirit, and I will pray with the understanding also. I will sing with the Spirit, and I will sing with the understanding also.
Okay? Ephesians 5:19.
Speaking to one another in psalms and hymns, spiritual songs, singing and making melody with your heart to the Lord.
Okay, this verse in 5:19 says, singing and making melody in your heart. Colossians 3:16.
Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in songs and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your heart to the Lord.
Okay, singing with psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, you know, just various songs from the heart. Hebrews 2:12.
Saying, I will tell of your name to my brothers. In the midst of the congregation, I will sing your praise.
All right, in the midst of the congregation, I will sing praises. Hebrews 13:15.
Through him then let's continually offer up sacrifice of praise to God, that is, the fruit of the lips, praising his name.
Okay, our singing is the fruit of our lips, praising God. James 5:13.
Is anyone among you suffering? Let him pray. Is anyone cheerful? Let him sing songs.
Okay? If anyone is fearful, let him sing songs. Dick, you wanted to make a comment a while ago?
I was gonna make a comment about, in the Old Testament real quick. I think that God realized that man was abusing, but also in Amos it says that, God says that, take thou away from me the noise of thy song, for I will no longer hear the melody of thy instruments. That's in the Old Testament. I think God realized what man was doing, that they were abusing the worship service on the Sabbath, and that he was going to straighten it out in the New Testament.
Dick's comment was that in Amos, the Lord said that you're making a melody, but you're not making it to the right person or for the right reason. And so his thinking is that God realized that man was doing something with singing that he really didn't want. Is our singing to be entertainment? I've had people say, man, our singing could use some work. I've heard me sing, I've heard others. I would agree. But is that really that important? Because God said, make a joyful noise to me, sing to me. And that what Betsy thinks is a good sound, Patsy may say, nah, not necessarily, but it's a sound, that's good enough. So we put too much emphasis on, let me back up. We put way too much emphasis on how we're singing rather than what we're saying to the Lord. Does that make sense? We're not conscious of what we're singing. I know in my prayers I try sometimes to take the song that the song leader just led and say, may we do what that song just said. Hopefully to get us to think about what songs we just sang and how we sang them. Because if we're saying those words, then we've got to have some meaning behind them, not just vain repetition. When we open our mouth, we need to understand that we're praising God. Bobo, do you have something?
It's just hard for me to understand. We have no problem agreeing about our singing here. We have no problem. Why are other churches of Christ coming in and adding instrumental music when they should be studying out the same thing we are, the Word of God?
Did everybody understand Bobo's question? The churches of Christ in some locations are allowing instrumental music to be part of their worship. Does anybody know why? Ann?
To please others.
Ann's reply was to please others. In other words, somebody spoke up, our singing would be better if it had music, blah, blah, therefore they have it. Somebody else?
Part of the reason is because they say we're losing young people. And they're going to lean more toward the entertainment aspect of it than they are toward the religious.
Our author of our book, Wilson Adams, had done some study, and once again, if you Google it, he's right. Churches that have instrumental music are losing members just as fast as churches that do not. So to say that it attracts and keeps would be a misstatement. Now, it may attract them for a while, but it doesn't keep them, that alone. So the instrumental music portion of it is not the reason that they're leaving, because they added it and they left anyway. But back to when we have people visiting or new converts or young people, why do we believe what we do? And Teddy's answer was the one that I used to give all the time, but it's just too silly to keep giving that. It's one that people ask. Yeah, we could afford it. No big deal. I imagine somebody's got a piano in their house right now that'd donate to the church if somebody would ask them. And why don't we take a minute to take a new convert and explain to them, as I'm trying to do today, why we don't have that piece of equipment in our worship. And our guests that come in, they look around and they've got to be saying, where is it? If you do a little more research into instrumental music in the church, you will find that for years and years and years, the church had no pretense of using instrumental music. The various denominations can show you almost to the day when some congregations began to use instrumental music. One religion started about 600 years after Christ left this earth. So for 600 years, not having an instrument was okay. And then one guy decided it was better. And he did it. And that church continued to do it. Many of their own believers did not agree with it. And so there was a separation issue. Move on into later times, even the 17 and 1800s, before other denominations had instrumental music. Now then, some of the best theologians in that particular belief will have been known to say our worship would be better if we did not have that instrument. Therefore, I am not for it, but I'm not going to tell somebody that they can't do it. What is saying I'm not going to tell them they can't do it? What is that really saying?
It's okay to do it. They're gonna stand in the way.
I'm sorry?
They're not gonna stand in their way. There was back in the 1800s, there was a preacher down in Florence, Alabama, that held meetings. He sold pianos on the side. He did meetings in Texas. Every meeting that he had down there, he sold the piano for the help. I don't know what they did with it. But we were up in Rhode Island. We went to travel, we went to a congregation with it, and the church class, and we went in, and they had bought this building, the Baptist church, and they couldn't get the piano out of the building. And so they took plywood, they covered it up, and I was asking them, one of the members, when we went in, they, we got service. They said, well, if we do have a piano, we can't see it because the Baptist on the building before we did, we couldn't get the piano out. The elders put plywood over in the far corner. There was plywood over there, they painted white, they covered it up.
Dick shared with us a church that in another state had an instrument because a preacher left it there, and then another instance where they had it and they played it only on special occasions. What is playing it on special occasions versus all-time difference? To me, there's none. If you got it, you got it. And if you don't, you don't. I know Brother James Shelley a lot of you remember him. He and I had some really good discussions. I think I could get under his skin, and I know he could get under my skin. But he made a statement one time that I thought about and thought about and thought about. He said, I don't even want one in the building. And the question was asked, why? He said, because they'll think that we use it all the time when we're only going to have it here for that one time. And I didn't agree with him at first, but now I kind of agree with him. That people will think if they got one in the building, then they must think it's okay. We need to be knowledgeable about why we do what we do and be ready to give an answer. Let's talk about sincerity. I do not want to call into question anybody's sincerity when I don't really know that person and know what they're saying or where they're coming from or something else. But is just sincere a reason for having an instrument in church? Like, Janita may think, I don't think there's a thing wrong with it. I think that music is better, our worshiping God is better. Therefore, I don't think there's a thing wrong with it. But does Janita's sincerity in itself make it right? No. No, it doesn't. She can be just as sincere as she ever was about the instrument. And she can be sincerely wrong. I had this occasion at a preacher's sermon one time. I don't remember where I was at. He was stopped for going 85 miles an hour. State trooper came up and said, "Sir, you were going 85 in the 65 zone." The guy said, "Yep." Didn't say I couldn't go 85. What's wrong with that? I agree. But back to the illustration, it didn't say don't go 85. It just said speed limit 65. What's wrong with it?
Well, if it says the limit, that's the limit, so I don't know about that argument there. Because the limit means that's as far as you can go.
You know, I had to talk to myself, you know, don't do over 55. Because sometimes I have a heavy foot. And then being married to Harold, we really had a heavy foot.
Understand?
So, you got to follow the law.
Now, the guy that sat on the wheels was as sincere as he could be. It didn't say I couldn't go 85.
Well, I still argue that it did say that, but it says 65 is the limit, that means you can't pass that.
Exactly. We have laws in this state that are set for a reason. And it didn't say 66 is okay. It said 65 is okay. Anything above is wrong. Now, why do we have understanding of our state laws, national laws, federal laws about what we can and can't do, but when it comes to the idea of singing and an instrumental music, the Bible doesn't say anywhere in the New Testament that it's okay. So why should we just take it upon ourselves to say that the Bible is, that instrumental music is okay? What gives us the right to say that it is?
We don't have a right. We have to go by the law.
We don't have that right. We have to go by God's word. Bill, you started to say something? No? Huh?
I was going to say the same thing Dick said, that we do not have that right. And I think, Ronny, that to the point we've yet to the people in other congregations where they use instrumental music, that instrumental music doesn't have a heart, and we're supposed to sing to God, praise Him from the heart.
Look at Highland Street Church of Christ. It was a big congregation downtown, down close to campus, Memphis, campus. They moved out, it was 11. When they moved out there, they built this giant building out there. And then they had two services in the morning, one with the piano and one without. And now they just got it with it. And the elders let that happen.
Dick said that a church in Memphis had two services. One was what they call contemporary, and the other was standard. One they had an instrument, one they didn't. To me, that's just the same as saying phooey on God, phooey what God thinks.
The elders let that happen. The elders
I know exactly what you're saying. The elders allowed it. Elders are just men. They make mistakes. And I believe we have every reason to stay away from the instrument versus using it. If God had wanted instrumental music in worship, don't you think He would have told us? That's a simple statement, but to me, it covers what we're talking about. If He'd have wanted it, He would have stated it. Just like in the Old Testament when he says Psalms, help me here, using harps and stringed instruments and flutes and other things, they were used. But when he came into the New Testament, he didn't mention it any time. And there's no indication that the churches at that time did. Number one, where were most church services held back early when the church was beginning?
In the home.
In their homes. We're talking about poor Jewish people who didn't have, I don't think, I don't know this, but I believe I'm right in it, the access to instrumental music. But if God had wanted instrumental music, He could have made it happen, and it could have occurred. We need to go back to the idea that what God commanded and what God wants is stated in the New Testament. And if we'll study that book, we will glean from it what is acceptable worship and stay away from vain worship. I've had the I've been to a couple of funerals in the last year at various denominations. I am amazed. I'm truly amazed at the expense they have gone to have a band on the stage. And I have personally talked to the preacher at these two congregations that I'm referring to. These are denominational congregations. And he said, I wish we didn't have them. Both of them said the same thing. I wish we didn't have the instrumental music. We have gone way too far in the entertainment area rather than in the worshiping God era.
Mr. Ronny?
Yeah.
You know, human nature is selfish. And it goes all the way back to, Eve eating the fruit in the garden. When you talk to people about instrumental music and worship, most of the reasoning is, well, it makes me feel good. It makes it, it makes the worship sound better to us. It makes it more beautiful. And that's the vain worship that you
Right.
It's not to please God. You can say it is, but it's more to please man or please yourself. And like I said, that goes back to the very first sin is selfishness.
Good point, BT, and well said. When we're wanting worship to please us, we lost all the reasoning behind worship. Our worship is to please God, and if we'll work at it, our singing will be better, and our worship will be more meaningful because we're doing a better job of how we apply it. BT?
I was going to add too that worship is the ramification of everyone. So I do understand that too. There is some small amount of selfishness in that. Where you're singing, you want it to be good, to be edifying, but that's not the point. The point is to be worshiping God. But it is a plus that it sounds good.
Well, I had a good thought I was fixing to say, and I forgot it.
Ronny, we have so many beautiful singers here at the church. We have people that can really sing. I mean, different parts of the whole 9 yards. And then we got others that don't know what a part is. And can't carry a tune. I mean, you could, but when it's all together and it's all for one purpose, and that's to please God, God makes us good.
Ronnie,
Joyce?
and back in the Old Testament, their worship was so entirely different than ours. Ours is based on the heart and the spiritual, where theirs was based on acts of things that they had to do. And when you edify somebody, if you listen to those words, that's what's edifying. It's really not the singing itself as far as the tune, it's the words that are being said.
Sometimes we're our own worst enemies when it comes to singing. Like Bobo and BT just got through saying. I remember coming home from last leaders on the Sunday morning and making the statement from the pulpit that we look like a bunch of sad mules with long faces singing compared to what we heard that morning with those 10,000 voices just bellowing up. I mean, it was beautiful. And those of you who have gone, I think will all agree, it is beautiful. There's 5 or 6 guys that they've never stood before 10,000 people in their life, probably never will again, and yet they started maybe off key or real low, but boy, that crowd picks it up and they're really worshiping God. Aren't we our own worst enemies when our, as Bobo said, when our worship is not right? We're not right. We're not putting into it what we need to. We're just getting through. I know there are times when every song leader here has said, well, I did the best I could, but those I was leading didn't get into it. I know teaching, it is easier to teach when you respond back and when you ask questions and when you do things. And the same thing is true for singing. If we sing out loud and we sing with vitality and we sing with emotion, our singing would be pretty. God said it didn't really need to be pretty, but if that helps us sing, then let's be that way. Maybe motivate the person sitting in front of you or behind you or beside you to do better. And if we all sing, open our mouth and sing, then how pretty or how good our singing would be. We're going to touch a little bit more about a cappella singing next week. I want to read something for you to think about. A cappella means singing without any musical instrument. The human voice is the sole instrument creating melodies, harmonies, and rhythm. We can do that with our voice. We don't need an instrument to direct us. And worship is not entertainment, but is doing something that is pleasing to God. And if we'll do that, our singing, no matter how bad it may sound to us, will glorify God and then glorify Him in heaven. I remember Mike Yopp said one time, his statement was, if we don't enjoy singing, then we sure won't enjoy heaven, because in heaven it appears that they were singing all the time. And that's true. If we don't like it here, don't worry about it, heaven. Any comments, questions?